All right, so everyone should just be continuing the notes from yesterday, or the last class that we had. We are looking at Hitler's fifth plan, the final solution, which is his most heinous and evil solution, I would say. We're going to look at what this final solution is and spend the next 2 days really examining how horrific this was. All right, so take a minute and please copy this down. All right, in red, in blue, in yellow. Okay, the whole slide needs to be copied down. I'm going to give you a good 2 or 3 minutes to do it. And obviously, we'll go over what this is shortly. Take another minute, make sure you get this all down, and then we'll discuss what's going on here. Okay, guys, so you should have most of this down at this point. So we should already know at this point from yesterday's lesson or Monday's lesson that one of Germany's main points was that the most superior race in the world was the Aryan race. So we've gone over this now a little bit. We should know that he was looking for blonde-haired, blue-eyed white people in Germany. He didn't want any other diversity. And we should know the group that he found to be the least valuable race were the Jewish race. Okay, if you're a Jewish person, you can be Jewish in the sense that you come from Israel, or you could be Jewish in the sense that you follow a religion, okay, a Judaism religion, okay? So basically, Hitler wanted to rid the world of people he blamed for Germany's problems. We know at the top of that list are the Jewish people and the communist people, okay? But we're going to focus, he's going to set most of his focus on the Jewish people. Okay, it was a popular religion in Europe at the time. It still is. Pretty much anyone who was not white was looked at as inferior. So if you're black, if you were Hispanic, if you were gay, if you had a disability, you were looked at as inferior and not the same rate, the same level as the Aryan race or the white race. So that's very unique for our particular country, right, guys? Because we are a country that consists of multiple diversities, multiple identities, and no one's better than anyone. Okay, everyone's considered equal, but Germany's not like that. All right, so how does he go about this? So we're familiar with this at this point. So at first it's a small thing. It's just going to start off as like some small things, but then eventually it's going to lead to this thing called the Holocaust. The final solution was the systematic extermination of all Jewish people in the world. If you're not sure what the word exterminate means, I want you to look it up and tell me what that word means, exterminate. To destroy. Okay? You might know what an exterminator is, and usually that's known for someone who is, taking out insects. But when you exterminate a group of people, you're trying to kill all of them. All right? So Hitler his final solution, his final goal is to basically kill all the Jewish people in Europe. All right, and I'll kind of explain how this happens. So he's first going to start with the Jewish people of Germany. Okay, and it's going to start small. It's not like he's just going to round them up and start killing them. That's not how it worked. It starts works in 4 phases. At first, it's just small things like he can't. It just starts as very small things. Like at first, Jewish people are not allowed to have certain jobs. Then Jewish people are not allowed to have citizenship. You're going to see how it starts off very small, and by the end, he's rounding up all of the Jewish people in Germany and then killing them in concentration camps, and we'll talk about what that is. Then he would go, he started taking over other lands, right? He went to places like Austria, okay, Czechoslovakia, okay, places like that. When he invaded those countries, he rounded up the Jewish people in those countries and put them in concentration camps. Okay, those are work camps. All right. Now, people in Germany were familiar with what was going on, but why didn't people in Germany speak out about this? Like, if this was happening in the United States, like people would protest, people would speak out about this for the most part. So why didn't people do it? Well, Germany's a fascist country. What happens, guys, write in the chat, what happens when you speak out against Hitler? So if you disagree with what he's doing with the Jewish people, what happens? Okay, you get killed or you go to jail. Very good. All right. Sorry, just answering this here. Okay, I have an email there. All right. So people in Germany didn't speak out about this because it's a fascist country. All right. If you dare oppose Hitler, you were killed. And people just kind of kept quiet. I mean, you could be upset about certain things. There may be things that upset you in the world. But if the result is if you get caught saying something bad, you and your family are killed, you may not be so willing to speak out against it. Okay? So that's kind of what happens. When you try and, kill off or hurt or get rid of a certain group of people, a certain race, a certain gender, a certain culture, that is known as genocide. Okay? So the Holocaust was the genocide for the Jewish people in Europe, led by Adolf Hitler in his final solution. Okay, now, this is not the only genocide that's ever happened in history, but this is one of the most famous because of the horror of it and the death totals that come with it. Okay, and we're going to get more into this now when we get to the reading. All right, this should all be copied down at this point. So we have a couple of words here just to kind of go through again. We have genocide. All right, we have extermination. We have some big words here. All right, but these are not good words. Okay, these are not good words. These are not how you treat anyone in the world. And this is where Hitler really shows his evil side, if you haven't seen it already. He basically didn't like Jewish people. He was powerful enough to basically, he's the dictator. So he says, okay, we're going to basically, get rid of Jewish people and no one can stop him. All right, that's the risk when you run a fascist country. If the leader's a good leader and he's a good guy, then it's probably not so bad. But if he's a bad guy, we got some real serious problems as we start to see here. All right, we're going to do a reading together. Okay, it's going to be a sad reading. Okay, I think when you really break down what's going on, you will see how sad this actually is. All right, so we're going to take our time and go through it. So if you can, I'm sharing my tab here. Please click on the reading that goes along with this. Now, there are some questions that come with it that you're going to have to eventually answer. I think it's very important we just take our time and do the reading. All right, I don't want you to skim through this. I don't want you to, skip over parts and just, try and answer the questions. I would like for you to put your pens and pencils down. I'd like for you to listen and really take in how the Holocaust got started. What would have happened if Hitler was assassinated? That's a good question. If he was assassinated, then maybe the Holocaust never happens. Maybe someone in his regime takes over and carries out what he wanted. It's tough to say. All right, but that obviously things would be a lot different if that was the case. Okay, so as I said before, it's broken down the Holocaust into 4 phases. All right, the final solution into 4 phases. The first 1 or 2 phases won't seem that big of a deal, but it's the start of something bad. And then phases 3 and 4 will be really bad, and phase 4 is just so sad. Okay, so the term final solution referred to the extermination of the Jews, or Hitler's final solution to what he considered the Jewish problem. He believed all Jewish people to be a huge problem, and he wanted to get rid of them. Hitler implemented this solution in phases or stages. So phase 1, when he was first put in as dictator with the Enabling Act in 1933 to 1934, okay? Between April and October of 1933, laws were enacted or put in place to prevent anyone of Jewish descent from holding positions in the civil service, the legal profession, the teaching profession, the medical profession, and in the press. So if you were Jewish and you were in Germany, you couldn't be a teacher, you couldn't be a doctor, you couldn't be a journalist in the media, okay? You couldn't hold positions of power where you could possibly influence German society, all right? If you were Jewish, you were not allowed to do it in Germany. Okay, that's crazy. Think about that. Picture if we said, if you're from Yemen, you're not allowed to be a teacher. And think about how crazy and how racist that is. But in Germany, that's how it was. Basically, Jews were eliminated from the most visible positions of power. The laws also began to restrict Jews from attending German high schools and universities. So Jewish people are not allowed to go to college. All right, so it starts small, but you can see it's already a pretty big deal. All right, Jewish people weren't allowed to do certain things. All right, let's go to the top right here, phase 2, which is in 1935, 2 years into Hitler's reign. At first, German people were outraged, meaning upset. But as time went by and nothing worse seemed to happen, they deluded themselves into believing that perhaps the worst was over. So many people believed, okay, I guess he's just going to not allow Jewish people into certain, professions, and that's it. Okay, but then in March 1935, the boycotts of Jewish businesses began again. And by September, the Nuremberg laws were passed. So boycotts of Jewish businesses, if someone was Jewish and they sold a product, you were not allowed to buy their product. Okay, that's what a boycott is. You're voluntarily not being a part of something. The laws specifically did these things: deny Jews the right to German citizenship. It forbid marriages between Germans and Jews. So I want you to think, what if there was a law in the United States that said no Italian people could be citizens? Think about the outrage. What if you were not allowed to marry someone of a particular culture? Picture loving someone and they happen to be of a certain culture, and you're not allowed to do it because the government didn't allow it. All right, if you're a white person and you want to marry a Hispanic person, no one's stopping you. If you're a black person and you want to marry an Asian person, no one's stopping you in America, but here you were in Germany. You're not allowed to marry anyone Jewish. After the implementation of the anti-Semitic laws. So Semitic is another word for Jewish. Okay, so if you're anti-Semitic, you're anti-Jewish. Hitler began to tone it down. The world was coming to visit in Germany in the summer of 1936 because Berlin was hosting the Olympics. So for a short time, the Jewish people aren't treated so bad, but things are going to get very bad. In 1938, 1939, after the lull, or the period of time that was not much going on, created by the Olympics, this phase was marked by an increase in violence. So now people are starting to get violent with Jewish people. In May of 1938, thousands of Jews were arrested and sent temporarily, in quotes, Why do you think it's temporarily? Why is it temporarily in quotes? Why did the author put temporarily in quotes there? Okay, excellent. It's not temporary. They're basically pointing out that it's not temporary. He's being sarcastic. They were temporarily sent to concentration camps. So concentration camps are basically like jails that you work at, but you're not paid. You necessarily didn't do anything wrong, so you're not sent to jail. But because you are of this culture or religion of being Jewish, you're sent to this camp to work, okay, because you can't be free in society. By July 1938, Jews were required to carry a special identification card. This made it easier for the police to control the Jews. Okay, so if you were Jewish, you had to have a certain ID card that labeled you as Jewish. November 9th and 10th, 1938 has become to be known as Crystal Night. Crystal Night, or the Night of Broken Glass. Okay, so what happens here is, I don't even want to explain what the reading is. Basically, if you owned a Jewish business, if you owned a Jewish home, there was, for 2 days, people in Germany and the police went around and broke the windows and broke the homes and the glasses of the businesses you worked at and the homes you lived at if you were Jewish. Okay, that's Kristallnacht. That's the Night of Broken Glass. By November 28, 1938, Jews were barred from attending schools. You couldn't even go to public school if you were Jewish. You were excluded from public places. You couldn't go to the beach. You couldn't go to the park. I don't know if there are beaches in Germany. That's probably a bad example, but you weren't allowed to go to the park. You weren't able to do things in public. You couldn't go to a game. And Jewish people had curfews. They couldn't be out late at night. If any Jewish person did those things, they were thrown in jail. So again, think about that. What if we said here, no Albanian people in the United States are allowed to stay out past 7 p.m.? Think about how bad that would be in America. All right, but Germany's a fascist country. And if you speak out against it, you're dead. All right, big difference. Here is the worst part. And it's amazing how many horrible things are going to be said in this small little reading. But there will be many horrible things. So after phase 1 and 2 and 3, the real bad part, the real part of the final solution is going to go into effect, and that is exterminating or getting rid of the Jews. Now, even Hitler himself couldn't just go out and just wipe out all of the Jewish people. So he had to send them to what's called death camps or concentration camps. I'm just throwing this here in the chat. Concentration camps. All right? These concentration camps or death camps were placed in Poland out of view of most of the Germans' eyes. You will learn eventually Germany takes over Poland, which is another country in Europe. Some of the most infamous, meaning famous for a bad reason, were Auschwitz, which is probably the most famous, Treblinka, and Belzec. Jews were shipped by railways from their homes to the camps. So you're going to see pictures of this tomorrow. You will see how the Jewish people are rounded out, literally yanked out of their homes. If they denied to go on the train, they were killed right there. They were literally put onto the train, and they were sent to these camps. Once at the camp, if they survived the train trip, which wasn't a given, Jews were herded in a long line towards the director. Now, this is the really sad part, one of the first sad parts. Basically, they're going to walk towards the director. Let's say I'm the director of the concentration camp at Auschwitz, okay? They're going to walk towards me, each person, okay? It doesn't matter if you're male, female, young, old. And they're going to look at your body and see if you are healthy enough to be a worker in this camp, okay? So if you're not, they're going to send you, so if you are, they're going to point you to the left, okay? If you're not healthy enough to work, they're going to point you to the right. The people that were healthy enough to work, they sent and got them into the concentration camp to start working. Okay? The people that were sent to the right were immediately killed. Just from the director pointing right and left. They would separate families, they would separate loved ones, it didn't matter. Okay? The director decided if you went to the right or to the left, and if they pointed you to the right, you went to what's called the gas chambers, which they called the showers. So they would word it as you're going to go to the showers, which is crazy. So people maybe assume they were going to, clean up, because they had just had a train trip. But that wasn't the case, because here's what happened. All right, they were selected for work or for death. Those selected for death were sent to the showers where they were executed using Zyklon B gas. So it would look like a shower, as opposed to water coming out. This Zyklon B gas would come out and just kill them right there. Okay, you inhale it, you die. All right, pretty quickly. The bodies of those cremated, a body of those that were killed, were cremated in large ovens. So like you kind of get rid of the body, so to speak. Okay, now we'll look at tomorrow when we go over the photos, how they do keep certain items, but their bodies are completely gone. Those chosen for work, so the group that had went to the other side, okay, as crazy as it sounds, I can't even believe I'm saying this. The people that were killed right away maybe had it easier than the people that were chosen for work, because the way they were treated when they were worked was in some ways worse than death. And I know that sounds crazy to say and hear, but once you see some of these photos, you will see what I mean. The way some of them looked, the way they were starved, the way they were not treated well. Okay, they were beaten. Okay, it was inhumane. Okay, those chosen for work had their heads shaved, so they all looked the same. You'll look at this tomorrow. They were tattooed with the number. Okay, so they were basically not allowed to call each other by name. They were given a tattoo on their arm. You'll see this tomorrow. That basically doesn't allow them to be. That doesn't allow them to have a name. They have to go by that number. And they were given a uniform. They were usually these striped pajama-looking uniforms that they all looked the same. So you couldn't really distinguish anyone from anyone because everyone looked the same. They were dehumanized, forced to do hard labor, and given very little to eat. And I can't believe in 3 words how horrific this is. 6 million died from the Holocaust. 6 million. Guys, you will never come close. I don't care even if you have social media, to meeting 6 million people in your life. Yet 6 million people died because the leader of Germany was the dictator in a fascist country and had the power to do this, and he didn't like Jewish people. Just absolutely tragic stuff. All right, so you're going to take the rest of this period, all right? You're going to use this reading, and you're going to answer the questions that go along with it. Okay, pretty much everything's from the reading, maybe 1 or 2 things from your notes, but ultimately most of it's from your reading, so you can work on that there. There are a total of 12 questions, okay? There are a total of 12 questions, so you have plenty of time to do it. You have about 15, 20 minutes, okay? And then you're going to answer the questions here, all right? And that is what you're doing for the class. And you should be adding 11 and 12. I apologize if it's not on yours. I might have just left it short, but there are 12 questions. There's not 10. So you should be doing all 12. All right, so you have to add 11 and 12 at the end. That's perfectly fine. Okay, guys. I'll be here. I'll be taking attendance. Obviously, if you have any questions, let me know. But you are working on this for the rest of the period. We are continuing the Holocaust tomorrow. This is a 2-day lesson. We'll get into something different, though.